Hi, Wayne Doorband here for the biweekly NTP CEED webinar huddle that we hold here at our Northern Colorado headquarters in Loveland, Colorado, both live here at our site and also going out over the web to those of you that are watching. Enjoy what we have for you today. We are excited today, and I'm going to, I should have asked her ahead of time. Janie, I have mispronounced your name, I think, a couple of times. We've got Janie with us. I'm going to let Janie give us your last name, the right pronunciation for the group.
Sure, Wayne. My name is Janie Gianotsos.
Gianotsos. Okay, I should have guessed that there was the Italian pronunciation there. And Janie's from the food bank in Denver, and she's going to talk to us about that in great detail. It's a great topic. I know you guys are going to enjoy it. She's an interesting person. But we're going to try something a little different today. We're going to do a little experiment of something that I'm preparing as a promo video that we're going to use. This is about 3 minutes long, and it's something we're going to use to promote what we're trying to do here at Nourish the Planet. And it's going to be a voiceover that I do over these slides that you're seeing up on the board. And so those of you that are listening, you're going to be seeing this full screen. When we're done, I want to take just a couple of seconds, let you think about it, maybe respond with some thoughts. I'm going to be looking at the people in the room, and I'll see their expressions as they go through it. You can see the title here is Get Mad and Put a Dagger in My Heart. Okay, and then the bottom below it, it says, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man a fish, you feed him for a lifetime. That will be up there for just a few seconds when we show this, when it's on the promo form, and then it's going to start like this. I was at a 2-day global leadership summit about 4 years ago. Speakers have been people like Tony Blair, British Prime Minister, Jack Welch, the CEO of GE, and many other prominent leaders. Right before lunch on the second day, a speaker took the stage who was some type of a government leader from Ghana. I don't even remember his name. He was a boring speaker, and he had such an accent that he was difficult to understand. About halfway through his talk, almost half the people in this huge auditorium had left for lunch. With about 5 minutes left in his speaking time, I had finally heard enough also, and I had left my seat and was walking to the back of the room. Just then, he got mad and hit on the dais and said, "You white people," and yes, the room was almost all white, "have been coming to my country for 400 years and giving us food, and we're still starving. Quit giving us fish. Teach us to fish." He might as well have put a dagger in my heart. He touched me so profoundly. But he wasn't done. He continued. Because we have just as many natural resources as you do, and we're just as smart as you are. Just teach us to fish. And he walked off the stage. I haven't been touched in this way very many times in my life. I started researching, found out he was right. Ever since Western cultures have been going to third world locations where people are starving, we've been giving them food. We have our 10-day mission trips. We get all excited because we see children eating. We have them sitting on our laps. We go home, we tell all our friends about our mountaintop experiences and how we're feeding a starving world. And yet, days later, the children are still starving. And generations later, they're still starving. And worse, they've forgotten how to feed themselves. We need to teach them again how to feed themselves. This unknown man's boring speech with an unforgettable ending has become the guiding mission in my life. I am fully committed and passionately driven to spend the rest of my life teaching people to teach people to feed themselves. And thus the genesis of Nourish the Planet and the Center for Economic Excellence and Development, where we have the bold mission to empower 1 million ecopreneurs by 2016 to teach the world to feed itself. Come with us on this bold mission. We have so much to share, and so many people still so poorly fed. If this has even slightly touched your heart, let us tell you how you might get involved. Somewhere here on the page, there is a place to put your name and email address. Fill it in. There's no risk. We won't share your name. We won't inundate your email with junk. We won't. But maybe we will show you some little thing that you can do that will help save one little child. Save one little one from spending a lifetime eating foods out of a box that have marginal nutritional value, not even knowing. Give one mom with AIDS the satisfaction of knowing her kids will know how to feed themselves. If you give us your name and email address now, I will send you a link right away to a more detailed video about a number of ways you could help someone else, even today. Please help. Over 1 billion people in the world will go to bed hungry tonight. Another 2 billion are eating poorly. We can stop this. We can. Touch it all? Did me 4 years ago. Anyway, how about online? If you've got any thoughts, go ahead and put them back in. And we're going to go to Janie now. We'll move away from the mission here of Nourish the Planet. And actually, it's a good introduction. So, Janie, what do you think about that? That's what we do. Again, I don't know if you were told very much about what our mission is, and that's sort of what we're up to. And these webinars are intended to show people like yourself who have a similar mission, probably taking a little different direction. So Janie is involved in the marketing side. She's the marketing director for the food bank. And tell us a little bit about yourself and the food bank of the Rockies.
Sure, Wayne. Actually, that was a very moving speech there, too, and it had to be quite an experience to hear that at the conference, too. That is exactly what we try to do, too, is explain to people that hunger is an issue. It's an issue right here in Colorado, and hopefully we can work to solve that together. And so I work at Food Bank of the Rockies, and I am very privileged to work with this organization. We've been feeding people in Colorado since 1978. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we started out as a very, very small organization in 1978, little one-room schoolhouse, got bread from a Safeway store, gave it to another agency, Little Sisters of the Poor, and that's how food banking got started in Denver. And here we are today. We distributed 46.5 million pounds of food last year. We're on target to distribute in the neighborhood of 50 million pounds this year. And believe it or not, that's still not enough to give every hungry person enough to eat.
Wow. 50 million pounds and not enough. What do your statistics show? You know, you hear it all the time. There's commercials and everything about sort of what percentage of people, even in Denver, that go to bed hungry, that aren't fed as well as they should be.
Right. Well, we know from USDA studies that 1 in 7 people in Colorado they're called food insecure, which doesn't mean they're starving, unlike some of those photos that we saw from your presentation. But what that does mean is that there are times of the month, maybe even times of the week, and in some cases maybe daily, where these people don't know where their food's coming from, they don't have enough money to buy food, and they struggle to put food on the table. And out of those 1 in 7 people, we know that 1 in 4 children in Colorado are struggling and living in those types of households.
And that's the numbers I've heard, that's about that. And, you know, it's in the neighborhood, 1 in 7, so there's 7 houses on your block. It means one person might be in that situation. When people envision what a food bank must look like, often it's a small place with some shelves and some canned goods. but I would guess that's not an accurate view of the food bank of the Rockies, is it? Give me a better picture.
Yeah, a better picture would be, imagine Costco, imagine Sam's Club, imagine a huge warehouse. We have 106,000 square feet of warehouse space in Denver. It's filled with racks. The racks are filled with pallets of food. We have 21 trucks, semis, and box trucks between our locations, out and about probably almost every day, but Sunday, I think, picking up food somewhere, delivering food somewhere. And it's a huge organization. It's a huge operation. And I think every time people come to visit us, they're surprised at the size of the warehouse. In the picture you're seeing right now, this is our truck entrance. We have huge truck docks, and we get trucks coming in from retailers, wholesalers, manufacturers, dropping in food to us. We have trucks going out, big semi trucks, small box trucks, and it's a great organization. We have 2 other branches besides Denver. We serve the entire state of Wyoming, and as part of northern Colorado, we serve the western slope, so we have a branch out in Palisade too. We are really the grocery store. They come to us and they get a lot of the food for their programs from us, and we distribute the equivalency of 106,000 meals a day, and we do that with volunteers as well as a small staff. We have 143,000 volunteer hours last year, which is about 69 full-time people we don't have to pay. So we have a very small staff. Between our 3 locations, we have about 100 people that work for us, but we have volunteer equivalency of about 69 full-time paid employees with 143,000 volunteer hours, probably about 11,000 unique people that come and help us out. So we couldn't do what we do without volunteers, and we really try to keep our budget very conservative, and 96 cents of every dollar goes to the food distribution program.
On the volunteer side, give us an example of a person. People always like to tell stories. I'm sure you've got one that would be kicking the camera. That would be a good example of just a touching story to you, someone who probably puts more time in than you might even imagine, and so on. Give us a story.
Oh, you know, we have our regulars, and we have some folks that have been volunteering with us for 10 years or more that come in, and they one lady, she comes and she works in our accounting area, and she's been working with us for, I think, 15 years. Her name's Barbara, and we have a gentleman named Ron, who's one of my favorite people. He comes in and sorts food 3 days a week. He's in the warehouse, and he's sorting the food in the reclamation area and helping our staff. He's like a staff member. So we have some great folks like that. We have a lot of people that only come once. They come with a corporation, or they're just an individual that wants to help out. And so our volunteers really run the gamut. We have young volunteers who are 14 and up from schools and youth groups that come and help us, all the way to retired folks in their 80s.
Wow, that is so cool. If somebody here or somebody online or whatever wanted to volunteer, what would be how would they get a hold of you? How would they deal with that?
It's really easy. They can go to our website, foodbankrockies.org, and on the left-hand side there's a button that says volunteer. Click that and it'll take you through the process. We have an online form to fill out, and we'll get back to everybody as quickly as we can and get them on schedule.
And I think near the end, Leanne will probably even put the website up, and I'll ask you that question again so we can get that out again. You said earlier that 1 in 7 people in Colorado struggle to put food on the table. You know, tell us about what kind of people we're talking about here. Who are these folks?
I think when most people think about hunger, they have 2 visions in their head. One of them is the poor children in the third world countries, and the other one is the guy that's on the intersection with the sign that says, you know, I don't want to lie, I need a beer, or whatever. So that's kind of what people think of hunger. But the reality of it is, in Colorado and really across the United States, the majority of people getting food from the food bank are working. They're working for low wages. They're trying to raise families. It could be the person that's cutting your hair or the person that's filling your coffee. It's really sad that these people don't make enough money to make it through the month and have enough to eat. And we're learning more and more now that this is becoming a new normal. Food banking 15 years ago was an emergency kind of a situation where people, maybe they lost their job or they ran into some health situations, but they could get food for a few months and then they'd be back on their feet, find a new job, get better. And nowadays we're seeing that that's not the case. People are using food banks almost as if that was their grocery store because they just don't have enough money to buy the food that they need.
Wow, this other major change. And what do you see looking ahead? Is there planning ahead similar situation, or do you see your customer base, which I hate to even say it that way, but it's true, being the same sort of thing, or what trends do you see?
Well, it was interesting to see, I forget who just raised their minimum wage in their community. Somebody,
Yeah.
I can't remember, but and our mission is to feed people, so we're not trying to end poverty, but I think as a country as a whole, we should look at some of those things and why is it that somebody can work a full-time job and not make enough money to feed themselves. So I think that's a question as a society we have to ask. But as a food bank, our job is to get food to people who can't feed themselves for whatever that reason is. And so we just continue to plan to try to figure out the best way to do that, the most efficient way to do that. We want to get healthy food to folks, because I noticed in your presentation you talked about people eating things that aren't so good for them, and certainly we want people, particularly those that might have a compromised immune system.
Makes sense. So how does the food bank work exactly? And how do people, do they come to your location? Do they get food? How does that work? So while she's sort of on a freeze mode there, I think an answer to that last question that we heard was asked about the wage. And Josh, I think somebody in the room said that $15 an hour.
Yeah, it's supposed to progress over, I think it's 3 years, but after the 3 years it'll be at $15.
It's the state of Washington.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you heard that, but the state of Washington has put into effect a minimum wage situation that will increase from today up till 3 years from now. It'll be $15 an hour. Leanne, are we getting Janie back at all?
Like her connection is lost.
Okay. So it looks like our connection with Janie has struggled here for a second. We'll get it back online. What other questions maybe would you have that we can store up here and think about to ask Janie? Anybody in the room that they're thinking of now?
Volunteerships usually go for a day.
It's a good question. Yeah. So we'll ask that one. How do the volunteer shifts go? Grab a chair, Jonah. There's some sitting right there.
It seems like there's another kind of hunger, and that is that people are eating processed.
Oh yeah.
It's not nutritious, and the children are sick and diseased. And
yeah, and
that's even a bigger problem than.
Well, it's a bigger problem here. I mean, fortunately, we don't live in India or places where 1 billion people are starving as they go to bed at night. But in the United States, malnourishment is probably a good word to describe where people are either eating so poorly that they are not even realizing it, but are having health issues, or they're eating poorly and know that they have diabetes or something else. Obesity is such a problem in this country. There are certain areas of the country where 40% of people are considered obese by the standards that the USDA sets out, and so on. So yeah, that's an issue also. So I think there was a question, Nicole?
They announced last year that 54% of the people in the United States, including the children, are overweight. And morbidly obese is a word that we use that you really only need to be a few pounds overweight to be considered morbidly obese, at a point where it's actually a detriment to the body.
Again, I don't know whether people heard that, but 54% I think is the number that were determined to be obese, and then morbidly obese is considered even just several pounds overweight, which could cause detriment. And I think Janie's getting back online now, Leanne, so come back up. Janie, we lost you for a little bit there. I think you're back now. Do volunteers serve for shifts, or how long does a volunteer work when they're there working on site?
Yeah, we have 2 shifts a day, Monday through Saturday, and they're welcome to stay for both shifts or just one. And one of them's from 9 to about 11:30 in the morning. The other one is from 12:30 in the afternoon till 3:30.
Okay.
And then same on Saturday.
Okay. And then we were talking a little bit about just the definition of being hungry, and and how hunger doesn't have to be starving, and you talked about that earlier, but that just people that aren't eating right. And then a comment was made about how malnourishment is probably more of a problem in this country than just flat out starvation, to where people are just eating too poorly. So do you deal with that also? Do you try to put as nutritious as possible food to these people, or is it sort of what you get?
It's a little of both. We have a policy that we don't turn down donations, so we do get soda and chips and things like that, because the same person that donates the soda and the chips may donate whole wheat bread and juice and things that are more nutritious. So we take everything, but we also have a purchased food program where we buy food, and we have a policy in that we buy things that are healthy, that are lower in sodium, don't have saturated fats, things that people would find in their own pantries that are healthier for people. We buy produce. We buy we just got a grant to get produce and bought potatoes. We get donations in that are all sorts of things, but what we do have control over is our purchase food program. Right. So that program, we have a policy as to what we do buy. We don't buy junk food and soda and things like that.
I've got some data here I was going to ask you a question about. Is it, again, you talked about the 46 million pounds. This year you're going to target 50 million. Where does it come from? So talk about where your food, who are the donors? John Nillen actually asked a question also. Is it, are there some big donors, or does it come from just a wide variety of sources? And if you can even say who some of your big donors are, that would be great.
Sure. Our food comes from a lot of different sources. Food drives are the things people always think about, but that's only about 3% of the food that we get. Most of it comes from places like the USDA gives us a whole lot of food for specific programs, so they're a huge donor. We administer programs on their behalf. Retailers like King Soopers and Super Target, Walmart, Sam's Club, Natural Grocers, folks like that donate to us. We pick up at their stores. We pick up the dented cans and the partially open boxes that are still sealed on the inside, and those sorts of items that they're taking off their shelves. We work with retailers directly and wholesalers, so someone like Kraft Foods or General Mills, those kinds of folks donate to us as well. And ranchers and farmers from Colorado donate to us. I know Sagada Farms and the Colorado potato growers bring us truckloads of onions and potatoes and things like that when they're in season. We've received flour from the flour manufacturers, so they're great to us, the ag community in Colorado.
And there's a misconception I would have had. I mean, I hope everybody heard that. Only 3% really coming from what would be the general public. And look at all these large providers. Wow, that's awesome. Hayden, I think you had a question.
Yeah, just being in the restaurant business for a very long time, I was just curious, do they ever do anything with restaurants, extra food?
So, I don't know if you heard that, Janie, but somebody in the room asked if you do anything with restaurants. Do restaurants provide anything excess? What else?
Or can they even?
Or can they? Maybe they can't. That might be.
Absolutely, they can. Now, we don't have the energy to go to each restaurant and pick up, say, a small serving of soup or something like that. But large organizations, Ameristar Casinos has been a great donor to us. They have these huge buffets. They actually pan the food up for us and keep it frozen. We pick it up, and then we get it out to the agencies. And there's another organization called We Don't Waste, and they will pick up at the smaller organizations and distribute it to soup kitchens and places like that. So we refer things to them a lot of times if it's something we can't pick up.
I'm going to cite something that at least I know in the past was in place, and that is that if grocery stores if they know that the next day after finishing a day of business they're going to be closed, so let's say it's Christmas or Easter, that there's requirements that they remove food from their freezer and refrigerated storage that is over a certain age, and they have to dispose of it, or they have to take it and put it into another status. I've seen other regulations like that just seem like they're incredibly wasteful. Obviously, a way that they could deal with that would be to give it to you, correct? I mean, that's something they can do.
Yes, they do, and we use an item called the Food Keeper. that allows us to look at the dates on things and know if they're still safe to consume, because the sell-by date is not necessarily the use-by date or the safe-to-eat date. So we pick up all sorts of perishable products, keep them refrigerated and frozen, and we're able to get those out to our agency partners.
So back to the volunteer side, you've talked about how you're a volunteer-driven organization, and that's awesome. What would a typical volunteer project be? So they're there for a shift. What would they be doing about there?
We have a few things. For folks who aren't able to lift, we can have them sort that food that we just talked about coming from the grocery stores and food drives. It all has to be looked at, cleaned, reboxed, and put out onto the floor. We also work with the USDA, and we have senior boxes, and that's a really fun project. We pack assembly line style boxes, and that's a group project. We need at least 10 people to do that together. So we have the USDA box project where everybody works together to fill the boxes in an assembly line style. A lot of fun for teams, corporate groups. So have agencies who place orders with us online. Those agencies are filled by volunteers. So they'll take a pallet jack and a pallet and fill it up with cases of food and prepare that for the agencies to pick up. And that's a really fun project. They usually do that in pairs. You can do that as an individual. And then our Totes of Hope program, which is a weekly backpack that goes out to kids and a weekly or a monthly tote that goes out to seniors. That program, those are packed also and prepared in-house, so that's something fun. And then we have mobile pantries, and those are trucks that actually go out to various locations throughout the city and to our rural communities. They're met by volunteers. Those volunteers actually help distribute food to clients.
Very cool. One of our online listeners asked, she had seen on your Facebook page about a newly signed Charitable Crop Donations Act. Would you tell us about how this works and how it will help you?
Yeah, we're really excited. It's HB 1119, and the governor just signed it on May 30th into law. It'll go into effect in 2015, and it gives up to a $5,000 tax credit to all those people in the agricultural community who file a Schedule F. So it wouldn't be your typical gardener that just grows a backyard garden, but this would be someone that actually is farming or ranching for a living. They get a tax credit of up to $5,000 when they donate that food to a charitable organization like Food Bank of the Rockies. And it keeps them from plowing that food under. There's a cost to them sometimes to donate that additional food from their crops. So we're hoping that what this will do is encourage them to give it to food banks rather than plow it under.
So I'm a livestock producer, and see the shirt, Mountain Sky Ranch. If I have livestock, products to donate, you talked about plowing under crops, but I assume the same thing would apply to me from a donor perspective?
Yes, it also applies to livestock.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's a big deal for those in the room and online. That donative it could make the difference between plowing something under versus not. So, all right. If I were to just be hanging out there for a day, give me a picture of sort of what I'd see. And I think Leanne's got some pictures she's going to show while you're talking about it.
Yeah, well, the day at the food bank starts early. Our drivers get in very early in the morning, and those that are going out with mobile pantries or going to Wyoming or going to the Western Slope fill their trucks. And they get on the road bright and early in the morning. A lot of times, if you're a Denver person and you're commuting, you may see our trucks on the highway. And then our staff comes in, and we get ready for the volunteers and get ready for our typical work day. We have an accounting department. We have a development department, which I'm a part of, and that's the fundraising side of it, the money, the community relations. Then we have our agency relations folks and our folks that work with all of our different programs. They're getting ready to get the totes out and work with the agencies to make sure their orders are handled properly. We have a warehouse staff that drives forklifts and moves pallets and takes care of everything that is involved in our warehouse. We have a volunteer team that meet our volunteers when they come in for their shifts and get them on track and help get them trained. And it's a busy, busy place, especially between about 9 and 3:30. It's just bustling with food and forklifts and people and a lot of fun. And then some of us, like me, I'm more of a late bird. I stay late, and we make sure everything gets wrapped up properly for the next day. So.
Are you sitting in your office now?
I am, actually, yeah.
Okay. We're seeing the traffic in the background every little bit, and your plants there, and
Yeah, this is our 4-minute tour on our website. People want to watch this. It'll take you through the warehouse in 4 minutes and tell you what we do.
okay, cool. So, you don't just help out the Front Range. The food bank is a large area you serve. So how do you get the food across most of northern Colorado and all of the state of Wyoming?
Well, we have trucks that leave our main branch once a week, and one goes to the Western Slope and one goes to Wyoming, and then we have warehouses there, and everything gets dropped off, and then those warehouses have trucks and staff, and they take it out to their communities there. Wyoming actually goes around the entire state. It takes about a month, but they do reach everybody that they can there, and it's a daunting task. It's a big state and not a lot of people.
So we've talked about the food side and the donation, but you got a lot of people working there. You got a large warehouse. There's overhead. There's a lot of costs, dollar costs. So where does your funding come from, and sort of how does that side of it work? And that's what you're involved in.
Yeah, our funding comes from obviously grants and foundations. We also get a lot of contributions from corporations. They're very creative a lot of times in the way that they donate to us. Some of them give us big checks, which we love, and some of them do really fun things at their office. They'll have chili cook-offs or jeans days or things to raise money for us, and then of course individuals are a huge percentage of where we get our money from. So every dollar that we receive turns into 4 meals or 5 pounds of food.
Very cool. So 4 meals or 5 pounds. That's a lot more than what people would probably think about for a dollar. So tell us about just generally how we can help. How can people help?
Absolutely. Our CEO likes to say we have 3 legs to our stool that keeps us standing up. Food, funds, and time.
All right.
Obviously, funds and time are the 2 best ways people can help.
Food, funds, and time, and the most important being funds and time.
And if everybody gives just a small amount, if they can donate a volunteer shift or a small amount of money, when everybody works together, it makes a big difference.
And how about the other side of the coin? People that are in need. How do they get a hold of you, and how do you find out who needs your help?
We have a zip code locator on our website. People can go to foodbankrockies.org, click the Find Help link, and they can download their zip code and find all kinds of pantries and help in their area. And then, of course, on the Western Slope, they can dial 211.
I told the group in the room that I had 2 fun questions to ask you that are a little more on the personal side. So what book have you read recently that's influencing your work with the food bank?
When I started at the food bank, it's an older book, but I think it's an important book. I asked my boss, soon-to-be boss, I said, is there something I can read before I start the job? And he said, get the book Nickeled and Dimed. And it's a book, it's by Barbara Ehrenreich. Hopefully I said that right. It was actually written in the late 90s, but she tries to live on minimum wage jobs. And it's just fascinating to see what she has to do to get by. And I think it paints a real picture of what a lot of folks are going through and who a lot of our clients are at food banks. So I would encourage people to read that book. It's a quick, easy read and really an eye-opener.
Nickeled and Dimed, right?
Right.
That'd be a very good one. And then, is there a quote or a phrase from anyone famous you can remember that you think about, that our audience should hear about as it relates to the food bank's mission?
Well, Eleanor Roosevelt said, the freedom of man, I contend, is the freedom to eat. And I think that says a lot. We all need to eat to be free and feel good.
Yes. Well, Janie, that was all I had question-wise. Let's sort of wrap up. Just anything else you want to talk to us about, tell us about.
Oh, gosh. Well, Food Bank we're really proud of the fact that we are a 4-star Charity Navigator rated charity, which is the highest rating you can get. And we've had that for 5 consecutive years. That puts us in the top 4% of charities nationwide. There aren't very many that can say that. So we're very proud of that. I would love for people to come and volunteer. If they come take a tour, check out our website and learn more.
One question was, where exactly? So let's say I wanted to drive over there. Tell us your physical location.
We are at 10700 East 45th Avenue in Denver, and that's right almost at the corner of I-70 and Havana. We're just east of Havana and just north of I-70. You might be able to see
So you're
I-70
near,
behind my window here.
you're near the Embassy Suites, right there.
Right
then.
next to the Embassy Suites, between the Embassy Suites and Denver Mattress.
Okay. So again, just get off of I-70 at Havana and just go to the north a little bit, right?
To the north and make a right or go east. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Anything? I think there was another question in the room here.
Yeah, just being such a company that's doing so well, have they looked into partnerships with like fishery or anything like that to get live, maybe if they have any extra fish or something like that to donate towards that instead of other causes? Is there any marketplace in that, or?
So we're fish oriented here, Janie, and so Hayden's asking, is there any way if a fisheries producing group had fish that they wanted to donate, would you take something that was not processed, or do you need to have things that are processed? I think that's probably the best way to phrase it, Hayden.
We do take game, any kind of game, if it has been processed at a USDA certified facility. That's the only way we can take it.
So it sounds like that if it was processed before it came, yeah. What else? Anybody else in the room or online? We're a little early, but because of some of our technical difficulties, I'm not seeing anything else here. We sure thank you, Janie. This is really, for me at least, I would have had several misconceptions, or I did probably, about the food bank. One, I'll just throw out some of my summary thoughts. Only 3% of the food coming from individuals, and so much more coming from larger groups. The total number of volunteers involved, that's not staggering to me, but it's awesome. I think that there's that many. How much you service other organizations that are involved in the food giving process, that it's much bigger than just your own market. You know, the fact, again, I think I understood that your marketplace wasn't the person that was homeless or that you'd see looking starving. It was much more of what we'd expect sort of a lower income person working hard would be. What other misconceptions did anybody else in the room have that Janie helped us get changed?
The restaurant part, yeah, 3% both very surprising to me.
The restaurant part, that restaurants could give food, and it's just, you were writing it down, so you can talk to some of your restaurateur friends and say maybe there's ways that they can figure it out. What else? Anybody else? All right. Well, Janie, thanks so much. This has been great. And anything we can do moving ahead? You're not hearing? She's not hearing it, Leanne? So we lost her again. Well, let's give her some applause. This was great. Appreciate it. Thank you, Janie.
Thank you for having me here, and you know, thanks from the food bank. We always appreciate the opportunity to share what we do and help people to understand what's going on in our state.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you. And Leanne, why don't we'll sign off for the day.